A ceasefire has been declared, but as we speak, missiles are still soaring through the sky. The world watches anxiously, caught in the grip of silence, while explosions echo the looming threat of a broader conflict. Israel, Iran, and the United States find themselves in a precarious balance of power and diplomacy, where every move could potentially spark a major international crisis. Let's unpack what's really happening behind these headlines and delve into the unfolding narrative. In the midst of this tension, then President Donald Trump made a surprising announcement. A complete ceasefire had been agreed upon by Israel and Iran. While the message seemed direct and decisive, reality painted a different picture. No formal confirmation came from the Israeli government, and Iran was quick to refute the existence of any such deal. Instead of a mutual agreement, Iran set its terms, stipulating that military operations would cease only if Israel first halted its attacks. They established a firm deadline of 400 hours Tehran time. Until then, the possibility of further conflict remained very much alive. This ambiguity left international observers on edge. While Trump's social media declaration suggested an end to hostilities, both sides were gearing up for potential escalation. The lack of official acknowledgement from either side underscored that this ceasefire was more theoretical than practical. Diplomatic insiders hinted that the US had been working behind the scenes, using covert channels and regional influence in a bid to broker peace. Yet the silence from both Israel and Iran suggested a deep-seated mistrust, where words alone were insufficient to halt the firing of missiles. Barely minutes before the ceasefire deadline, Iran took the world by surprise by launching a missile attack on Be'er Sheva, a key city in southern Israel. At least 20 rockets were fired, targeting civilian areas while most residents were still asleep. The sudden onslaught resulted in 4 fatalities and 8 injuries, as reported by Israeli rescue teams. The strike also left significant destruction in its wake, damaging one apartment building beyond repair and severely impairing 3 others. First responders urgently sifted through debris, pulling victims from the wreckage as citywide sirens blared. For many, this attack was seen as a calculated move, either to exert pressure on Israel ahead of the deadline or as a form of retaliation prior to retreat. Despite earlier assertions that Iran would pause hostilities if Israel ceased operations, the timing of the missile launch cast doubt on Iran's intentions. The attack reignited fear among Israelis, already fraught from weeks of ongoing conflict. While Tehran framed it as a controlled reaction, the smoke rising over Be'er Sheva told a different story, suggesting that a true cessation of hostilities was slipping further from reach. Israel wasted no time retaliating. Within hours, Israeli fighter jets unleashed a series of airstrikes deep within Iranian territory, targeting military installations, nuclear sites, and government buildings that supported Iran's military infrastructure. This counterstrike was extensive, leading to significant destruction and over 610 casualties, with more than 3,000 injuries reported. Among the damaged infrastructure was Iran's nuclear facilities. Notably, Evin Prison in Tehran, notorious for housing political detainees, was hit. Furthermore, roads surrounding the Fordo underground uranium enrichment site were targeted, complicating any repair efforts and movements. The precision and swiftness of Israel's response delivered a clear message. Although there was no official announcement of abandoning the ceasefire, Israel's actions spoke volumes, demonstrating readiness to respond with force to civilian attacks. Military experts noted that the operation's precision, striking multiple strategic targets in quick succession, highlighted meticulous planning and advanced intelligence gathering. As the dust settled from these strikes, the region braced for inevitable retaliation. On June 22nd, the United States took direct action, launching precision bombings on Iranian nuclear facilities using B-2 stealth bombers. The strikes aimed at slowing, but not dismantling, Iran's nuclear capabilities. High-penetration bombs left significant damage in their wake, but as U.S. officials acknowledged, this would only create a temporary setback of a few months for Iran's nuclear advancements. Intelligence data revealed that Iran had preemptively relocated key materials, limiting the long-term impact of the bombings. Nonetheless, damaging infrastructure, roads, and power systems imposed immediate challenges for Iran's nuclear aspirations. The move signified a calculated decision by Washington, reflecting a willingness to act decisively yet cautiously, avoiding full-scale conflict. By aligning with Israeli strikes and precise timing, the U.S. aimed to limit Iran's options without endangering American personnel. With this assertive stance, the U.S. openly entered the conflict, shaping the unfolding events while attentively anticipating Iran's next move. True to form, Iran retaliated against U.S. interests by launching missiles at Al-Udeid Air Base in Qatar, Qatar, a crucial US military stronghold in the region. In this attack, out of 19 missiles launched, Qatar's defense systems intercepted 13. Although one was deliberately ignored due to its low threat level, other missiles were either neutralized mid-air or fell short of their intended targets. Thankfully, no casualties were reported, but the attack heightened worries about an escalating regional war. Despite the US downplaying the attack as a weak reaction, Qatar condemned it as a violation of sovereignty and international norms. Qatar responded by temporarily closing its airspace, causing widespread flight cancellations and rerouting across the Gulf. Iran framed the base selection as a strategic decision designed to operate away from civilian populations. Though minimal in damage, the missile strike sent a strong message. Iran was prepared to hit US assets if provoked further. This exchange catalyzed global concern, prompting urgent calls for calm from NATO, the European Union, and the United Nations. While global leaders urged de-escalation and diplomacy, everyday life in affected areas was already disrupted. Israeli airports were briefly shut down, forcing cancellations and detours for numerous international flights. Warning sirens became a daily reality across Israel, pushing thousands to seek refuge in shelters. Meanwhile, flights over Qatar faced diversions and groundings, leaving travelers stranded and highlighting the broader civilian impact of military escalation. The ceasefire, announced with much optimism, seemed fragile at best, as President Trump dubbed it the 12-day war, reminiscent of the 1967 Six-Day War. Experts warned of a protracted conflict that could drag on with intermittent skirmishes. Both Israel and Iran voiced their reluctance to negotiate without concrete action or guarantees. Israel demanded a complete halt to Iranian military activities and a return to serious nuclear negotiations. Conversely, Iran saw no incentive to cease if Israel continued airstrikes, especially after suffering damage to its nuclear facilities. Analysts cautioned that persistent hostilities without genuine diplomatic resolve could evolve into a drawn-out war of attrition, draining both sides without achieving a clear victory, and complicating the situation for civilians and neighboring countries. Intelligence reports also warned of Iran's continued missile capabilities, signifying a refusal to capitulate to pressures. Meanwhile, Israel's military maintained a heightened state of readiness, underscoring that further airstrikes could occur if necessary agreements were not achieved. This precarious ceasefire could very well be merely a pause in a larger, more devastating conflict. As global leaders scramble to diffuse tensions, the stakes are rising, and the implications extend far beyond the Middle East. What happens if the next strike is larger, more decisive? This is the critical question on everyone's minds as the world watches and waits. The situation in the Middle East is teetering on a knife edge, with the ceasefire already showing significant cracks. Iran's denial of any formal agreement, coupled with their pre-deadline missile attack and Israel's swift counterstrikes, reflect both nations' readiness for continued aggression. The human toll is severe, with hundreds dead, thousands injured, and vital infrastructure left in ruin. Even US involvement with its strategic B-2 bomber strikes has only managed to delay, not disrupt, Iran's nuclear plans. Iran's response against a US base, though not catastrophic in terms of casualties, sent shockwaves throughout the region. As calls for restraint continue to emerge from world powers, the truth remains that peace is fragile and uncertain. Military buildups, heated rhetoric, and broken trust threaten to escalate this crisis further. What started as localized confrontations risks evolving into an extended conflict unless genuine diplomacy takes root. The real question is not just what's next in this conflict, but how it will ultimately reshape the geopolitics of the region and possibly the world. This is Goba Military. Subscribe to stay updated with the latest news we bring you daily.